Hello and welcome to Pop Off, Sis! The show where we talk about life, current events, and, well, ourselves. I'm your co-host, Lydia.
And I'm your co-host, Margot. Welcome to this week's episode.
Welcome, you guys. Hey, what's up? How is your lovely rainy day going?
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
This episode, we just wanted to let you know we are issuing a trigger warning. There will be topics such as death and sexual assault, so please take care of yourselves and make sure that this is subject material that you can handle.
So with that said, Margot, what is your rose and thorn this week?
All right, well, my rose, guys, I'm moving back to campus.
Woo, woo! Chow, chow, chow.
That's what I was trying to do. I don't know
sorry.
What?
What did you say?
Who let the dogs out? Who? Who?
That's your singing for this episode.
Oh my god, yay! We're getting it in early. Yes, I'm moving back to campus. I'm very excited. Listen, I gotta be here for all my homies' senior year. Like last semester, if you think I'm gonna miss out on the partying, on the hanging out, on the ups and downs and it all, I am not. I am here. I am back.
It's great to have you back.
Thank you, Lydia.
So exciting. What did we do last semester without you on campus? Like what?
I mean, I do not know. That kind of leads into my thorn. With this being one of the last weeks that I was commuting, I did some stupid shit with my car. I've been very tired lately. I've been working very late on this show. If you listened to the last episode, you probably heard me talk about 479s for about 20 minutes too long, and we're probably like, what is this bitch going on about? Well, listen, I'm exhausted. I'm not ending my days until 11 p.m. every day, and I'm here all day doing schoolwork, doing it all, no breaks. It's fine. So I went to leave and get in my car last weekend after I'd been at school for 14 hours on a Saturday, working nonstop. It's fine. And I got into my car and I turned it on and I start driving forward and I hear a huge thud. And I'm like, shit, I just went over a dead body. I just murdered somebody. I run out of my car, and you guys, my dumb ass rolled over the cement block that was like,
no!
You know those cement blocks that distinguish two separate parking spots?
Yes.
I just forgot it was there. I literally just forgot, and I rolled over it. And then I kept rolling forward after that and got my back end off of it. And my car seems okay. I have not had time to take it into the shop, so I've just been rolling. My car's named Betsy. She's hanging in there
Betsy.
by a thread. So that was my thorn.
Prayers up for Betsy.
Prayers up for
Wow,
Betsy.
I'm sorry. My rose this week is actually kind of selfless because I'm out here to promote my sister, Lydia Parker, and her new business venture. She recently just launched a brand called 123, which you're like, what? Let me explain. On Instagram, go to 1TEW3BRAND. 123 brand. Why is it spelled TEW? Because, Margot, in Baltimore, there's like a known thing that two is pronounced TEW, like tube.
Oh!
I don't really do it, but it's a thing, and basically she was inspired by this past Baltimore Ravens season. They were 14-2, and so she's made these t-shirts that say 14-TEW, because that's how you pronounce it too.
Wait, so cute.
So it was kind of like she was inspired by the stunning end to our season, but also just the pride we had in Lamar Jackson and how great our season was. So I just wanted to shout her out for starting that, because we are all very proud of her for that.
And we love creative ventures.
We love creative ventures, and if any of you want a t-shirt or just to see what the heck I'm talking about, go to 123.com, which is spelled ONETEWTHREE.com.
And we'll put something up on Instagram to promote.
And then my thorn is, I don't know if this is just on campus or if you all experience this in your daily lives, but people do not move out of the way on the sidewalk. It pisses me off. Like, I am just the type of person that will, like, walk get out of the way just because, you know, whatever. But lately I've been like, no, I'm gonna stand my ground and keep walking straight. And people will wait to the last second to get out of your way. It's like they expect me to move. I don't know. As a woman, you know, I start thinking about, is it me? Like, what's wrong? But it's insane. Like, have you experienced this?
Oh, yes, for sure. I mean, especially as somebody who, like, walks super fast, and my pet peeve is slow walkers. They don't move. But they do say that there is something about women and men. Like, if women walk down the street and you try and walk in a straight line, you will always be the one bouncing around. But whereas a man, when he walks down the street, he walks straight and he doesn't care. Like, and people move out of their ways. They did like a study on it.
It's just so frustrating, and it's like I'm expected to get out of the way, and it's like no, and I think it bothers me especially on campus because we're this huge campus, and it's like, but we're all going the same way, and it gets so busy, and it just is like there's all this space on campus, and I have to run into somebody or I have to dodge someone else. It's insane, and a lot of times people are looking down on their phone, which I'm guilty of some of the time, but I've just noticed it a lot lately, and I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it.
People got to be more aware of the space that they take up on the street.
Yes. So we wanted to quickly overview what everyone's been talking about, probably still talking about by the time this episode comes out, is the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, we had said in the last episode that we didn't know what our expectations were for J-Lo and Shakira, but we knew that it would be very fiesta, lights, all that. So, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk now about, was it too sexual? Was it overly, you know?
Right.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I fucking loved it. Like, I had so much fun. It's the best halftime show I've seen in years, in my opinion. Like, the last one that I was, like, super into was probably Beyonce or Bruno Mars. Like, I think Bruno Mars's halftime show was phenomenal. But I thought it was great. It was just like a giant party the whole time. Plus, for me, what like the most incredible part is you are watching a 43-year-old woman and a 50-year-old woman dance better or just right up there with all of those 20-year-old dancers on that stage. Literally, people gave J-Lo so much shit for like the stripper pole thing. But do you know how much core and athleticism it takes to be able to lay horizontally on a pole like that? Like, that shit is so hard. I thought it was such a display of athleticism. To me, I did like the Shakira bit better because I just love her, and she just like has an energy, and oh my god, her belly dancing. But I just thought it was such a good display of culture. I love that they brought out the Puerto Rican flag.
Yes, and it had the USA on the other side, so it's like they're one and the same. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens.
I thought they killed it. I like that J-Lo brought out her daughter.
Cute.
What did you think?
Yes, totally. And I honestly didn't really think about this stuff about the pole dancing in terms of how much core it takes. Like, it really is an athletic thing to do.
It's hard.
And you know how that one shot that's just so amazing where her hands are spread out and she's turning. You think she's turning around herself? Like, she's making herself turn? Or is the pole turning?
No, she's turning.
Wow.
That's like what pole dancers do.
That, to me, then, was, like, one of the most impressive things. I also liked Shakira more in general. Like, she was my favorite of the two. But, yeah it was just... It was a party. Not that age is important, but come on. 43 and 50 years old doing that? Like, I couldn't do that.
Oh, I couldn't... There's no way in hell I could do that.
There were so many memes of, like... me at 20 running up the stairs out of breath and J-Lo at 50. Like, it just is inspiring, too. Like, I want to be able to do that at 50.
I know. And, like, they look hot. They look great. And I just loved it. And then, you know, of course, the white suburban moms came out and were like, it was too sexy, blah, blah, for a halftime show. First of all, like, nobody complained about Maroon 5 last year with Adam Levine taking his shirt off and, like, dancing sexually and stuff. And second of all, you're just mad that you can't do that and that you're the same age.
Right, exactly. That's what it is.
I also think that, like, feminism is about, it's not like, you don't have to be conservative to be a feminist. Like, let's bring our bodies out. Like, yeah, that's what a 50-year-old, well, one version of a 50-year-old woman's body looks like, and it looks great, and why shouldn't she show it off? Like, if she loves her body, if she wants to share it with the world, then what's wrong with that? She looks hot. It was a great time, and all this over-sexualized bullshit was bullshit.
Totally agree. And did you peep, just on like a great statement note, that when her daughter started singing and it showed the other girls in those like light up things?
In like the cages?
Yes! I had to go back because I had heard that commentary. I didn't even think about that. Like, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was
Great.
just so well done. It was a party that had a political, you know, ideology behind it that showed off great athleticism and also Latin culture. Like,
Yep.
Shakira was doing a dance at one point that's from her hometown. So, listen, if you thought it was overly sexual, then that's your issue. But I thought it was amazing.
Yep. And also some love to some of the Super Bowl commercials. I honestly, because I didn't really care about the game itself, I was like, commercials and halftime show.
Right.
And two that I really liked were Post Malone did a Doritos commercial where he's like getting a tattoo of a Dorito, and it was called like Post Limon, because I think the Dorito flavor was like lemon or something. But I really liked that one. And then the other one, Margot. They spoke to my housewife-loving heart during the Super Bowl. Okay, really, really, really quick backstory is Real Housewives of New Jersey. There's been a lot of feuding, obviously, it's drama. But two of the main stars, Teresa Giudice and Caroline Manzo, who's like an OG of the franchise, she was on like an earlier season. They were really close, but now are like complete arch enemies. But they did a Super Bowl commercial together promoting Sabra hummus. There was like all these different celebrities in this one hummus commercial. But Teresa is known on the show for flipping a table during the first season. And basically in this commercial, Caroline and Teresa are sitting at the same table and they flip the table together. It's just, if you're a housewife person, it's like monumental because they probably haven't been in the same room together for like 5 years.
Wow.
So Teresa recently did an interview and said they aren't friends. They just kept it professional for the commercial. But to me, it was like, that was my Super Bowl. That was it. So I just had to shout that out.
That was your sunshine moment.
Yeah.
Well, I'd also like to give a little quick Bachelor update. And when I say quick, I mean very quick. This is all you have to know. The women are catty. There's so much fucking drama. If you ever watched Bad Girls Club, the reality TV show, it's like that in the house. There is no love. That's it. So today's episode is going to go a little different than normal. We're going to be reporting on some events, and it's going to be kind of a philosophical discussion. I think it's going to be really interesting to get our thoughts out there. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Just know that it's not going to be our typical reporting.
Yeah, we feel like it's really important sometimes to talk about things going on, and sometimes they're bigger than the story of the week.
Yeah. This is where the trigger warning begins. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Kobe Bryant and his death. So if you guys didn't know, which I'm sure most of you do, Kobe Bryant passed away on January 26, 2020 in a helicopter crash along with Peyton Chester, Sarah Chester, Alyssa Altobelli, Carrie Altobelli, John Altobelli, Christina Mosser, the pilot Era Zobayan, and Kobe's daughter Gigi. The way that this death was handled in the media is pretty interesting to look at. It was kind of gross in the beginning. TMZ reported about the helicopter crash before Vanessa even knew, Vanessa, Kobe Bryant's wife. They just started putting out information, and then for the hours leading up until police were able to report and do an investigation, every news outlet was digging for information. They were putting out false information, completely falsified. They were looking for clicks. Everyone was trying to get a scoop.
Yeah, and even them saying people that were on the plane that weren't, like Rick Fox, they were saying was on the plane at one point. They were saying Kobe Bryant's whole family was on the plane, which isn't true. Like, in this kind of situation where there's sensitive information involved, it's like of all times to not be guessing or trying to get the story out there first, this would be one of those times.
Right. And it was just like clickbait central. Yeah, they would like put random people, you know, whole family dies so that people would click it. And it was just like really kind of disheartening to watch that, you know, this famous person's death was just broadcasted and used for monetary value. That kind of happens with all celebrity death, but with a crash, so tragic and sudden, people were just like, I mean, they were like vultures. And I really hate like paparazzi, and you know, it's hard because we do a pop culture podcast, so we're obviously talking about, you know, celebrities a lot, but I do think that there's a fine line between like reporting drama and then like overdoing it, overstepping, and making it to a point where, you know, it makes life harder for the individuals who you're reporting on. And in this case, it definitely probably made Vanessa's life harder if she found out via like her phone, like maybe she got a news notification, you know what I mean? Kobe Bryant dead.
I can't even imagine. And obviously she was living her life, so she knew that they were on their way to the basketball tournament. So she knew that he was in a helicopter and that her daughter was in a helicopter. So it's like her mind doesn't go the same place when we see it goes. Like she's thinking, oh my God, you know, my daughter and her husband are on there.
Yeah.
But it's just disgusting. I don't know. I can't even imagine. That's all I can say. And even how you were saying that there was fake helicopter crash videos circling, like that is...
It's gross. But I think it's also so intriguing to think about that people, like humans are really obsessed with death because we're the only mammals who are cognizant enough to recognize our own mortalities. I mean, I remember somebody told me that there were these helicopter crash videos going around, and part of me really wanted to like, it's weird and gross, but part of me was like intrigued. I was like, well, I wonder what that looks like, and I wonder what like seeing life being lost in front of your eyes must look like. But then which is a crazy thought to have, but as humans, part of us is just so intrigued by the idea of death because it's not something we can fully comprehend, but that we know is coming. And just these helicopter videos, especially the people who like started the fake ones, they're just capitalizing on that, which is disgusting, but also just says so much about us as humans.
Right. And death is one of those things that since we don't know exactly what it happens and what it's like until you go through it,
right?
I think that's what makes us all the more intrigued to figure it out. But I think it's interesting because whereas with curing a disease or that kind of thing that we hope we one day know, death is something literally you can never know until it happens to you.
Right.
So I think that's why the curiosity is so intense.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you go make fake videos about how a crash happened or conspiracy this, conspiracy that. It's just like you said, there's a line with everything. There's a fine line.
Right. The communal mourning of Kobe was quite a sight to see. I mean, there was just this outpouring of love for him and his daughter Gigi. The Empire State Building was lit up in purple and gold for the Lakers colors. It was all over social media, all over every single news outlet. And I could kind of feel the day he died, there was kind of like this mood shift, you know, like this heavy mood on the day. And I'm not somebody who follows basketball at all.
Me neither.
But like I know who he is.
Right.
I feel like, you know, most people around the world know who he is because he was such a great player and he just such a big personality. And it's interesting to see how society mourns specifically celebrity deaths, because in so many of the reports of like online, the articles and newspapers, it was like Kobe Bryant and Gigi and 5 other passengers died. And in some ways it's valuing celebrity life over these other people who weren't well known besides maybe to their communities. But then what does it say when we just say, and others? How does that show that we are valuing their lives? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure people in the news might argue that it's only newsworthy because of Kobe and Gigi. And it's just, you know, what does that say? Because under any circumstances, I don't care who you are, no life is valued over another. No one is more important than anyone else, no matter how much money you have, fame, power, all of that. Obviously, we know that. At the very end of the day, it does not matter. So what does that say? And I can just imagine being those other families and how they feel to be seeing headline after headline saying Kobe Bryant and Gigi, who are just as much as important as Christina Mauser and the pilot and all the other names that in this moment I can't remember. And why can't I remember them? Because it's all about Kobe. And it stinks because, Margot, I feel like people are going to think that means that I'm not valuing Kobe enough for what he was.
Right.
But that's not what it is. No matter how amazing he was at basketball, and I'm not taking that, that's what people are going to think is that I'm taking that away from him.
No.
Which is just not at all. And that's where the message gets lost, you know?
Yeah.
And it honestly makes me think of, this is just from a while ago, but the O.J. Simpson trial, it kind of made me think of how Kim Goldman and her family felt, who was the sister of Ron Goldman, who O.J. Simpson was also accused of killing. Basically, O.J. Simpson's wife, Nicole, passed away, and then this other guy named Ron Goldman, who was like her friend, passed away. Yeah. But it was all about Nicole dying. So it's that kind of thing. It's like, now I feel like Kim and her family, the Goldman family, probably can sympathize with stuff like this.
Scenario. Yeah, I mean, I think, nobody's denying Kobe's impact on society and how he changed basketball and all that, and it's extremely important, and especially to basketball fans who probably feel it, very deeply. However, there were 3 young girls on that plane, There were 3 girls part of a teen basketball team, and you're only hearing about Gigi, but all lives are equal, and the whole situation is all equally as tragic for every single one of them, and the reporting hasn't really shown that.
Right.
I found, at least.
And I'm trying really hard to imagine people's argument against what we're saying, but it's hard.
I think people are focusing on him because he was well known, obviously, but I think that there should be more of a push to focus on everyone, because everyone's contributions to society are important, whether you're a big basketball player or like an accountant, you know what I mean? You change somebody's life in your lifetime, and that matters. The other thing that I was seeing on social media was like everyone and their mother was like, I love Kobe. That one time I met him for 2 seconds changed my life. And it's interesting because everyone tries to be a part of public death. Everyone tries to associate their ties to that person to make it stronger. And I know there were a lot of fans of Kobe who got really frustrated because they saw all these people who didn't really follow basketball coming out and saying, oh, this is so tragic, I love Kobe, and posting pictures of him. And these fans were saying, well, you guys didn't really love him, you didn't follow him, you can't just claim to be a fan now. But at the end of the day, whether you were a fan who watched him, who loved him since you were young, or if you're just somebody who heard about the death and felt very sad by it and it affected you, regardless, if you weren't a part of Kobe's life, either way, it doesn't, how do I phrase this? It doesn't change the death. It doesn't change the way he's being mourned. And nobody who didn't meet him and didn't get to interact with him, nobody has more license over him and his death than the other.
It's okay to just be someone that had admiration for him, and your admiration for him might have been more intense than someone else. Maybe he was a part of your life through the television more so than Margot or I's because we didn't watch basketball. But we can all mourn him in the same way, and we all mourn him for different reasons. I mean, I think about it from the way that I think a lot of people do, in that life is so fragile, and in an instant, something can change. You can literally pick up your phone and see that your loved one has passed away. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. Lately we've been hearing a lot about tell your loved ones you love them and cherish every day, and I think that is the takeaway message too. And that applies to everyone that was lost, not just Kobe, not just his daughter. That's everyone on that helicopter. Yeah.
And I think, in the same vein, there are people who try and capitalize, like I said, like news outlets, and I saw a lot of, questionable celebrity posts where it's like, okay, are they trying to capitalize on the death? Are they trying to gain sympathy or something from it? But at the end of the day, everybody mourns differently, and especially when it's a celebrity death, you can't dictate how somebody is going to feel and how they're going to react, and some people might, use it as a stepping stool, and other people might just, genuinely be affected by it. But at the end of the day, we can't affect, us personally. If somebody's choosing to mourn in a specific way, there's nothing you can do about it. So something interesting to look at is famous people's deaths, no matter what kind of fame they've acclaimed, are always mourned. And we were talking a bit about this in my class on trauma and terror, and we were talking about how even people who have done really bad things in their lifetimes are also mourned, especially, I think, famous people. So you think about serial killers, or Osama bin Laden, for example. Osama bin Laden, when he was killed, people took to the streets in celebration of his death. But celebration is a form of mourning.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like no matter what fame you've received, when you die, people have a reaction. And that in itself is a form of mourning.
And I think a lot of times we hear the term celebration of life, but I guess there could also be a celebration of death.
Mm.
So you're right, there is always the celebration. Are you also talking about this in terms of when there's any kind of crime that involves murder happening where they tend to keep the victim's name quiet, but they say, they identify the suspect? Ted Bundy, yeah.
It's like, how many names do we remember of the victims of serial killers, mass murderers, mass shootings? And, now media is trying to become a little more cognizant of that, right? Sometimes they refuse, some news outlets will refuse to say their name, but at the same time, it's all about that clickability. And you remember Ted Bundy's name, but I have no idea a name of any of the one of his victims.
So true. That's also, I feel like, a fine line, because do you want to put then the families on blast of the victim? I mean, I agree. I think we should. We should know the names of the victims.
Right.
But yeah, it's like if they don't want their names out there, if the families don't want the names of.
Right.
But if the media is going to be as aggressive as it can be and go after storylines and not care about any ethical things at times, then maybe they should just ignore the wishes of the families. Is that not a good idea?
I mean, yeah, it's a hard line, especially news outlets are a business just as much as anything else. There is that influence on what they're putting out there. They're looking for something. And talking about ethics, something Lydia and I have been talking about is, when do you separate an artist from their art? And how do you figure that out? So particularly, we're going to start off with Kobe. When he died, some people were very sad and mourning and felt down. And I think most people did. But I think even some of the people who felt they were mourning, part of them remembered the rape trial that he went through in 2004, I believe, where he was accused of raping a 19-year-old young girl. There was no official verdict on the trial, and there was a settlement for a civil suit that she brought against him. But nobody really knows what happened. However, there were a lot of survivors who began speaking out and saying, why should we praise this man? Because they believed the victim. And they're like, why should we praise this man? Why should we mourn this man's death who raped a young woman?
Or allegedly raped a young woman.
Right. In their mindsets, though.
Right.
They believe that, yeah.
That is a clear example of, can you separate the art or celebrity or whatever from their art or from whatever they do? In his case, basketball, and his career in philanthropy. I think he was very generous with foundations and that kind of thing. And I think that can be a very hard line for some people. And I think a lot of the controversy of this is because he just passed away and it's already becoming a conversation. So I think some people are like, give him time to be mourned by his family and let the world grieve, and then we can start talking about this.
Right.
But other people are like, no, you know? Would you say that you think that it depends on people's experiences and what they've been through that influence how they feel about him?
Yes. Definitely. I think a lot of sexual assault survivors were inclined to believe that he did sexually assault this young woman, especially because this was in a time before Me Too. It was in a time where women weren't necessarily believed. You know, even today, I mean, even now, sometimes women aren't believed. But I would say with the Me Too movement, there has been more of a push for believing survivors. So I think it was definitely a big trigger point for some people. But like you said, it did come out like the same day that people were intensely mourning this public figure, did come out this trial. Something my professor said that I find really interesting. And again, this sexual assault is alleged. There was no verdict, so I don't think we'll ever know if it really happened or if it didn't. But my professor said, since when do we as a society not mourn rapists? And I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in that, like, when serial killers die and Osama bin Laden dies, like, there is still a mourning that happens for those people. I think it can also be taken in a different direction where sometimes we don't believe the women and then we do just mourn a man who we thought was so great, who could have sexually assaulted somebody. But since when do we as a society not mourn those who have done wrong? And regardless of if somebody has done wrong, and I'm not saying you should do wrong, sexual assault should not happen, you should not murder people, right? But that's a life too. And I'm somebody who likes to believe that there's got to be a good somewhere in someone, even if they do terrible things.
Definitely. And I think depending on who you are, I mean, those people have families also that regardless will always choose to believe them over anything else, no matter how clear-cut evidence may be, they're going to mourn that person. So there's always, like you said, everybody is mourned.
And in that vein, moving on to separating, you know, the player from their game, Aaron Hernandez, this Netflix documentary recently came out that was a huge hit. And like you were saying, his fiance, she stuck by his side even though the evidence was so strong that he had committed murder of multiple people. She stuck by his side the whole time and chose to believe the good that she saw in him. So yes, these families are still mourning the individual because even with Ted Bundy, you know, his family, I'm pretty sure he had a wife, I believe, when he was doing all this. She didn't see that side of him. She saw the loving Ted.
And recently, even his daughter gave an interview, his daughter and his wife, that they had no idea that he was doing all these things. And the daughter said she didn't witness any of this. So it's just like, there is always someone that has good faith and is believing in this person regardless of the evil things that they can do. And even back to Aaron Hernandez, along with his fiance, his brother, his older brother, stated in many interviews that he could never imagine Aaron doing this type of thing. Like, he doesn't believe it to this day. And blood is thicker than water, and family ties a lot of times, I guess, can sometimes blind you from wanting to see the truth. And we've never been in that situation, so we can't speak to what that's like, and we don't know how we'd react. If we found out that one of our family members was accused of something, we don't know how we would respond, so there's no judgment here at all.
For sure.
But it's just, I think you're so right that people that do bad things are mourned. And in the same vein, you know, one of the people that came to our mind, obviously, was Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And in light of the Neverland documentary, obviously, he has been talked about a lot recently and in 2019. So would you say that he's an example of someone that people really struggled with separating him from his artistry?
For sure. I mean, I think when you're dealing with kids, it adds an even stronger difficulty. I think a lot of people, though, when, you know, the stories were first coming out, had a very hard time believing them. And I think especially, you know, that he was a black man in a time, you know, being one of the world's biggest artists in a time when society, I mean, you could argue still today, but society was not very accepting of seeing a black man in such power. So I think initial reactions when this came out is like, well, he's been dead for so long, and these people are trying to bring down the legacy of a man who was so great. And I mean, Michael Jackson's music is timeless. Like, I don't think anybody can deny, even if you're not into pop, even if you're not, like, he was an icon, will always be, and his music changed the world. I firmly believe that. Can you separate that Michael Jackson from the Michael Jackson who had inappropriate relationships with young boys? It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And maybe every time you think of Michael Jackson or hear his music now, you're also thinking of those actions that he did. But are you turning the music off? Not necessarily. But then you have people like R. Kelly, who it's very easy for us to separate and never play his music again. And, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, so maybe it doesn't have to do with the crime itself? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think in some circumstances it does. I think specifically Michael Jackson, like...
I see what you're saying, not to cut you off, but I think
go for it.
He definitely was... It wasn't like he had this persona of being kind of a bad boy. Like, if you watch any of those R. Kelly documentaries, he literally has songs called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, and he just... He wasn't as secretive, maybe, with this other life. It kind of isn't maybe as surprising to hear that he was doing the things that he was doing, whereas Michael Jackson was like, we got to heal the planet, we got to take care of one another. Like, his message was love.
Right.
And so maybe that's why it's harder?
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah. I think the way they were in life, you know, before the accusations come out also has an effect on how much people believe Michael Jackson, his accusations coming out after his death. I mean, I think there was maybe a couple during his lifetime that were kept quiet. Like, people were coming out.
He went to trial a couple times.
Oh,
like, he went to court over these kinds of things. But I think it was either always settled or they always kind of were just done with. Yeah. And even in the documentary, you know, the survivors even made it a point to say they didn't know they were being assaulted at the time. They don't even think of it, I'm pretty sure. They don't even think of it. They didn't even realize what was happening to them, that anything bad was happening until they got older and could think about it. So I think that made people, like, less hesitant to say that they were assault survivors.
Right.
Even.
I also think it's interesting, what does condemning the dead do for us? I'm not saying that these sexual assault survivors shouldn't have come out and told their story, but it does beg the question, what do we get? Like, what does a survivor, and as somebody who very fortunately hasn't experienced some sort of trauma to that extent, what does vindicating them and telling the world what they did after they died, what kind of not gratification, but what purpose does it serve, is interesting, because at the end of the day, the person is dead, and they are not doing these actions anymore. Maybe it's because you want the world to know what was done to you. You see them being celebrated, and you don't want them to be celebrated the same way that people were saying, like, well, Kobe Bryant is being celebrated, but he could have done this terrible thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very hard question to answer, but a very interesting one. And I think that you said it. I think vindication has a lot to do with it. And I think, too, there's something to be said about the person being celebrated and the survivors may be feeling some sort of way because their experience and view of this person is drastically different than the majority of the world.
Right.
So that's probably very difficult. And, you know, unfortunately, money talks, so we don't even know that side of everything. But in good faith, let's hope that that's not what the motivating factor was.
Right.
And just one last example, but this person's still living, so just kind of a living example. Because to me, that brings in a whole nother part of this. We're talking about Kanye West and some comments he made. Margot, do you want to read just one of the many comments he's made recently?
I mean, I think the biggest comment that kind of caught everyone off guard was, he said in a TMZ interview, when you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
The choice heard round the world. Yeah, that one. And then what else did he say about his ego?
Oh, I found this one. He was talking about himself. He likes to refer to himself in the third person a lot. But what he said was, I think what Kanye West is going to mean is something similar to what Steve Jobs means. I'm undoubtedly, Steve Jobs of internet downtown fashion culture, period, by a long jump. I honestly feel that because Steve has passed, it's like when Biggie passed and Jay-Z was allowed to become Jay-Z.
So he clearly has an ego issue. And then yes. Obviously he's been very active, or at least in 2019 he was very active with conversations with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And there's just been a lot of things, obviously, within the last couple of years that he's done that has really, really, really sparked a conversation of art versus artistry.
Oh, for sure.
I know people on both sides. I have people close to me that definitely can separate it and love him so much and are just such fans of his music. So I totally see both sides of it. I also wonder if the fact that he is still alive, this is just me wondering. I don't think people really think about this much, but if when the person's alive and we're trying to separate the art from the artistry, if that's any different than doing that for a Michael Jackson that isn't here anymore, and there's that whole, context of, well, he's not here to defend himself, so, like being more empathetic when they've passed.
Right.
So the fact that Kanye is still here and still successful and still has his music out and everything like that, is it easier to separate it? And then also, sorry, I'm just giving you so much to ponder, but also, even just comparing Kanye and his actions to then an R. Kelly and his actions, it's like, there's that layer of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely different levels, right? Like, Kanye West said some stupid shit, and his ego is indescribable. I mean, I think he's like, I don't want to misdiagnose anyone, but I would say he's a very good candidate for, like, people who are actually diagnosed with, like, being narcissists, like the actual, like, full narcissistic disorder. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called. I took AP Psych a while ago. Listen, nothing I say is psychologically fully based, but I try.
It was AP, though.
AP.
Advanced placement. You special.
So there's a difference between, like, ego and saying some offensive shit and then, allegedly, pretty convincingly, having sexually assaulted many women.
Right.
So there's different levels. I personally, on this Kanye thing, I don't like Kanye West, not even a little bit. Mm-hmm. To be fair, I wasn't the biggest fan of his music. I enjoyed his music. I wasn't the biggest fan, so that probably has something to do with it versus somebody who's a diehard fan. And then here's that he says slavery was a choice. And then, you're, like, caught in this weird in-between. I just don't like him, and so I won't listen to his music. So that's the way it worked out for me. I don't know. Do you have a personal...
I mean, I always liked his music, but I wasn't necessarily like, oh my gosh, I have to go to a Kanye concert. Mm-hmm. But I do think, especially some of his older albums, were really good. Like, I'm definitely a fan of his music, right. I'll say. But I guess when you say a comment like slavery was a choice, I guess at some point, just for your own sanity, you have to just think of it as that's such a crazy statement that just, like, it's not even worth getting upset over, I guess.
Right.
Because just I was sitting here thinking, like, him saying that is just so... It's almost so wrong that he's just not okay. Like, it's just not even worth attacking him over. But I definitely think you're right that it depends on how big of a fan you are of the person. And that applies to everyone we've talked about, how you can separate them or not.
I have one last person to bring up that just came to me is, you know, Kevin Spacey. That was probably like my biggest version to date of like the struggle between accepting the art versus the artist. You know, it's pretty clear that Kevin Spacey has done some pretty messed up things within the industry. However, he was one of my favorite actors when this came out, like House of Cards, all of his earlier stuff. He's a fabulous actor. And, you know, the fact that he's done terrible things doesn't make him a bad actor. The same way with Kanye West, the fact that he has a big-ass ego doesn't mean he makes bad songs, except for that, like, scoopity-poopity song. I can't.
Scoopity-poop. Scoopity-scoop. What does that mean? Right.
But I haven't since watched a Kevin Spacey film. But it's hard because, like, part of me really wants to go back and revisit House of Cards. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what the right path is. And you can't deny, I mean, I think he was one of his generation's, like, greatest actors. I think he's up there with, like, Tom Hanks, honestly. Like, I think he was really a very talented, very passionate man about theater and performing. But I don't want to support somebody who, and like give money to franchises that he was involved in when he was being inappropriate. So, we're going to move things over to a bit of a lighter note, a bit of our ranting time with some Savage Seconds.
I like doing it.
I could do it right this time.
Yay.
I didn't start singing Who Let the Dogs Out. Hooray. I hope you guys enjoyed our bit of a different segment today. I really personally enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, Lydia, for indulging in that conversation with me. Please let us know your thoughts and let's dive into some Savage Seconds.
Okay, listen, I know we all love our phones, and I am one to talk. We clearly know I can talk at this point, but I'm going to need you to look at me while I'm talking to you. I cannot stand when people look down at their phone when I'm talking to them. It is so disrespectful. I am guilty of it in the past, like a year ago. I have not done it since, because give me your damn attention. I know now how my mother and adults feel when you don't look at them. It's rude. It shows you're not interested in what I'm saying. I don't give a fuck if you have to act your ass off. Listen to me when I talk.
What is the fucking deal with cover letters? I'm sorry, why do I have to explain everything to you that I would just say in an interview? That in a document that you're not even going to take the time to read, yet I have to put so much energy into explaining why I'm such a great candidate? Just like fucking call me into an interview and I'll show you why I'm a great ass candidate. Please and thank you, and that's it.
She had seconds to spare.
I know, I thought I was there.
I just want to preface with our quotes today. We wanted to be very positive, and we both chose quotes from Dolly Parton. Because when you hear Dolly Parton, she's just like a ray of sunshine.
The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain.
If you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours.
That's so sweet.
That's so sweet.
Dolly, we love you. All right, guys, I'd just like to say before we sign off, please take care of yourselves. If anything was hard to listen to, this conversation was definitely a little darker than what we usually talk about. So just take care of yourselves. Go on a walk, read a nice book, do some painting, listen to some music, have some fun. I hope you guys have a fabulous, fabulous week. And we will see you very soon.
See you soon.
And that is our show.
Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at popoffsis.podcast and our personal accounts at Lydia__Parker
and at mtrouvé. Be sure to check out all of our episodes at popoffsis.wixsite.com/website. Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.